thought our guys started really, really fast last week, which was the goal. Was we wanted to come out the gate flying, and our guys just making plays, specifically in the run game. And I thought we did so early on. I think we had some third and fourth series struggles where we'd get a first down within that series, and then we have a setback on 3rd and 7 plus. I think we had a drop ball and an overthrown ball a couple times. And then once we got into the situation where we needed to throw the football, I thought our guys did a really good job of competing for deep footballs, making guys miss in short areas, and the quarterback delivering when he needed to. Obviously, we fell short of our goal, scoring more points than the opponent, but I was proud of the way our guys fought the entire game, and they never gave up. Moving on to Gardner-Webb, these guys are a veteran group of football players. With the exception of 2 guys, they're all juniors and seniors, so they've played a lot of football. They're very disciplined. They know their system really, really well, and they don't get beat on simple plays. If they're going to get beat, they're going to get beat on some complicated things, and that's a credit to their defensive staff in preparing those guys week to week. They're well trained, they're well coached, and they're disciplined.
Joe, it seemed like the Kennesaw State and Monmouth game, they kind of mirrored each other. Score first, and then you give up some points, and then you make a comeback. Were there similarities between the film reviews with deficiencies, I guess, offensively in that middle part of the second quarter?
There were. I'd say they were just really a lack of execution on those money down distances, really 3rd down. I think we had a drop ball where we were checking it down, and if he would have caught it, he would have run for a good number of yards. We had a drop on a scramble out to the field on our sideline. We had a drop. So when it matters most, it's usually on that 3rd and 7 plus down and distance where we've had an error. And they're all crucial errors, but they're ones that are fixable. They're drop footballs. And then there was an occasion or two where Buckshot, he overthrew a couple guys. The fortunate part in those series, with the exception of one, I believe, we all scored on those drives. So when you miss a guy that's wide open for a touchdown, if you don't score in that drive, you're really, really feeling it when you come back to the sideline because you left points out on the board.
Coach, from last week to this week, what's the biggest improvement you'd like to see in your offense?
Really just to convert on those 3rd down and long situations. I mean, we got good plays called, and it's just really a lack of execution when it matters most. I thought our 1st and 2nd down game plan, worked really, really well last week. And when it came down to, those money down and distances, we just didn't, we didn't convert when we needed to. We didn't play like we needed to. Now, there weren't a lot of those situations last week, which was, fortunate to see, but nonetheless, you just still don't want to see that. You don't want to have to say that every week. Hey, on 3rd down, we've dropped the ball, we overthrown the football. We missed X, Y, and Z.
Noticed a couple of times Buckshot throwing off his back foot. Is that just part of his repertoire? And obviously, it's not coached that way. But how does that affect him when he has to throw off his back foot?
Yeah, usually when you're dealing with a young man with with the arm strength that he has, you gotta. There's some good and some bad. Just because he's a natural gunslinger, he wants to spin the football, deep, early, and often. And at times he's going to go through his progressions. But if there's a breakdown in protection, or if he sees that a number of his reads in the progression weren't open, he's now going to scan the field and try to find an available guy. And so most of the time, when you see him throwing off his back foot, it's because he's working his 4th and 5th option. And that's the thing about playing the quarterback position is the contingency plan is the scramble. It's okay, 1's not open, 2's not open, 3's not open. Now I have to move around and find an available receiver. And sometimes you're going to do that with a clean pocket and no one around you. And other times you're going to do it, and more often, with duress, with people coming from all over the place, and you got to find available windows to throw the football from awkward angles. And that's what most of the time when you see him throwing off his back foot, it's because he's throwing through a murky window and from an awkward angle.
Gardner-Webb's defense did a great job shutting down Kennesaw State, holding them to not many points at all. What do they do that creates big problems for offenses?
Well, they see a version of the option every single day in practice, just because they're an option team themselves. Different in the sense that they're a shotgun option team. And Kennesaw State, notoriously in the past couple of years, they've always struggled against an odd front team, just because if they're stout of any size, and they're well coached up in the option game, it's difficult to score a lot of points, on that type of defense. And so what they did a really good job of is just shutting down those A and B gaps and running to the football when they try to get to the perimeter. Us being not an option football team per se, will be a little bit different challenge for them, just because they're coming off a week where it was a really physical football game. Score of 17-3, but there were a lot of hits and a lot of calories, expended in that game. So they got to come back and get healthy themselves. But moving forward, it's going to be interesting to see, how we come out the gate versus these guys, because they always get excited to play against us, and as do we. And so it's going to be a fun challenge.
Joe, defense creates a couple turnovers in the third quarter last week, and Monmouth knows that down by 30, we're going to have to throw. But at the same time, very successful in that third quarter. How does that happen? What did you see offensively to mount that comeback as Buckshot started kind of shredding the defense a little bit?
Well, usually once you get to going in a shootout, so to speak, or when you're in throwing situations, you kind of get a feel for what the defensive coordinator's trying to do. At times they're going to stick to their routine and play their base coverages, and at other times they're going to mix things up and try to confuse the quarterback, specifically if you have a young guy like Buckshot. And credit to Buck, and his receiving core. They've spent a lot of time in the offseason together, working a number of different routes. I mean, there were routes called on Saturday in the third quarter that we haven't had in since, week 3. And because they were playing specific coverages, we could see it from up top. And the sideline communication between the coaching staff and us in the booth, it was easy to just get those things communicated to the kids, and for them to show up, on tape after the game, was awesome, just because it shows you that we have great line of communication, and our kids can, process information that may be a couple months old.
Coach Gill mentioned that he'd like to see less 3-and-outs from the offense. How do you manage to gain the short yardage as well to get these first downs and also throw in some big plays as well?
Well, usually when you're in that 3-and-out world, your success on first and second down isn't very good. And so with that being said, you got to have more +4 runs on first and second down, more +5 gains in the pass game on first and second down, so that once you get into that third and 2 to 3 or 4 to 5 range, those are manageable down distances where I can throw the football and get it out of my hand, and I know that at the end of that play, the receivers are at that depth or more, and we should be able to get a completion.
Coach Wimberly was saying that some of the defensive guys actually came up to him and apologized after the game for their effort. Have you seen any of that on the offensive side? Have guys come up to you and apologize for their play, their effort during the game?
Not me per se, but all our guys, for the most part, I know specifically on offense, were apologetic, because they know that how much work we put into it as a group, as an offense, and as a coaching staff. And so we've had our coaches say in meetings, hey, the kids, they feel bad, they feel like they could do more, and that's the response that you want to have when you lose a ball game. Heck, even if you win a ball game, you should want to have that same response from your kids that, hey, I left it all out there, but I think there's more left in the tank, Coach. And anywhere you go across the country, that's what you should hear from your kids, that, hey, I may have given everything I have, but there's still more you can get out of me, Coach. And those are the kind of kids you want to coach. And so, that's a credit to Coach Wimberly's kids, for them to come out and be candid like that. In addition to our guys on offense, when that does happen, it does occur. We don't look at it in a negative fashion. It means that they care and that they're bought in, and it means something to them.